sacrifice. Media lights, but the mission real. Speaking truth with integrity and skill. Engineering mind and a legal brain. Still grounded through the pressure and fail. Every chapter, every page. Growth and purpose, center stage. Learning daily, aiming higher. Turning passion into fire. Hear me out. Javone Steven Vickerie. One voice, many purposes. Rising higher for the world to see. Building legacy courageously. Guyana shining bright tonight. 60 years and the future in sight. Through the media, let the whole world know. Golden arrowhead continue to glow. Yeah. Logo media making impact strong. Telling stories that uplift and belong. Community focused, meaningful talk. It's nourished youths with every walk. Never boxed in one lane alone. Creating pathways of his own. Journalist spirit, entrepreneur drive. Helping conversations come alive. From Georgetown streets to global dreams. Nothing is ever quite what it seems. Young leaders rising every day. Guyana moving on the way. Javone Steven Vickerie. Purpose-driven energy. One nation, one destiny. Forward forever proudly. Raise the flag and let it wave. For the bold and for the brave. Guyana 60, celebrate the flame. And let the whole world know the name. Forefront today. See our work 365 and DJ Quinn. Real conversations, real people, real impact. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out.
That's right, that's right, that's right. Hear me out, hear me out. I'm telling you, man, good evening to you, good people, and welcome to another powerful edition of Forefront today. We are on CRL 365 on YouTube, on Facebook, on my personal page where conversations matter, voices are valued, and purpose meets platform. I am your host, R.C. Harlequin, also known as DJ Crane, the matured mixer, broadcaster, community advocate, career coach, minister, and YouTube creator, man. And you know, your hope pusher and your lid lifter. And I consider myself also a trumpet. And tonight, we spotlight a young man representing vision, discipline, growth, and modern media excellence. Our guest is journalist, entrepreneur, storyteller, and founder of Logo Media Services. That is Logo Media Services, a professional who continues to carve his path in media, communication, and public engagement. Born and raised in Charlotte Street, Georgetown, Guyana, he has spent more than a decade developing his craft in journalism and media, while also gaining valuable experience in human resources, strengthening his understanding of leadership, people, and organizational culture. Not stopping there, he continues to expand his horizons academically by pursuing degrees in both engineering and law. That alone tells you this is not an ordinary mindset or ordinary interview. Tonight, we dive into media, purpose, discipline, growth, education, entrepreneurship, public engagement, and the responsibility that comes with having a voice in society. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the first time to Forefront today, Mr. Javone Steven Vickerie.
All
Welcome
right,
on in.
Thank you so much for that welcome. Thank you so much.
Man, I'm telling you, it's a pleasure to have you here. Right
Yeah.
on inside of it, man. You're a journalist, so you're prepared for this thing. You got no cold feet with me tonight.
Well,
Right. So I got to dive right into it. Who is this Javone Steven Vickerie beyond the titles, cameras, microphones, and social media presence?
yeah. So beyond everything, I'm just someone who is, quiet in some sense. I love nature. I love animals. And so I spend most of my time now studying. as you could imagine, and I'm in the background doing work, um,
Mm.
and I'm also writing as a journalist. I have started a small space on Facebook where I try to have those discussions with normal Guyanese on things that are topical. Originally was named Hear Me Out, but we had a bit of a mix up with the name. And so
Mm.
I've decided to call it Levy Reason. And through
Very
that
recent.
platform, yeah, through that platform, I've been able to engage meaningfully with Guyanese, and it's been a big deal for me. It's been received well, and so yeah, that's what I would normally do apart from everything else.
Awesome, awesome. But talk to us about growing up in Charlotte Street, Georgetown. What lessons from your upbringing still guide you today?
There were both positives and there were both negatives. I think one of the positive things that about Charlotte Street was that we were very family oriented. I grew up with both my mother and father in the picture, and their teachings and their beliefs helped shape who I am today, in some sense. But there were also negatives to it. I grew up in an area in a time where you had protest action happening. I grew up in the times when there's elections called. People were not satisfied. They were tear gassing. They were protesting. I lived through all of those things, and it helped shaped how story not only how I saw Guyana, but how stories were supposed to be told. Because I think a lot of times people downplay the impact of certain historical events in Ghana. And so those things for me were, you know, um, motivators for me to get into journalism as well. Because there was, for me, those things were a negative part of our country, but at the same time, it helped to develop, what I saw at that time, and comparing what Guyanese were back then to now, in some sense, yeah.
Mm. So there was some part in that time that you first realized that media and communication were more than just interest for you. When was that?
It started when I was around 6 years old. I often tell people that children know if you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, um, at least 60% of them have no clue getting out of high school. But I think back then, you know, what happened with the education system is that they gave us things like tours. So
Mm.
our primary school went on a school tour one time. This was like many years ago, and we got an opportunity to tour several places. I had an opportunity to, I think it's TVG now, but it was evening news at the time, Channel 28. So we got to see the
Mm.
studio, and I was just fascinated by the lights, the cameras, the way how they were moving in the newsroom. Because news is something that happens right away. And so since then, I told my mom and my dad that I wanted to become a journalist. That, of course, was a bit fearful. Journalists are not really favored people in society. Um,
Okay.
but they're respected, but in some societies they're not. And I remember the first thing my mom said was, "You got to learn to read. You're not gonna go on TV
Mm.
and embarrass you and this family." So I guess from since then I got a lot of books as well. So I learned to read
Awesome.
over time, and it developed my character as well.
Mm. Well, over here from middle school, we aspire to educate our youth so they can be decided. The word is undecided, for them to be decided on
Yeah,
who they want to be, a career pathway, and we give them skills, soft skills, prepare them at middle school from eighth grade. And so I'm glad that you were decided at such
yeah,
an early age, at 6 years
yeah,
old, and uh, and so you follow your dream. That you, I know back then you didn't know anything about RISEC. Over here, they do a RISEC profile assessment, and you're able to determine your strengths, your weakness, and your goals. And so you're able to channel your ideas and connect with the people who could help you prepare you for that kind of interest you have in journalism. Um,
yeah.
but what was your first real experience in journalism or public storytelling?
So interestingly, when I got out of school, I just thought that it would have happened.
Mm.
But interestingly enough, I was pretty young, and it should be told, it happens now, it happened then, that out of high school it was very hard to get jobs. My very first job, and I kid you not, was working at Church's Chicken.
Mm.
I was frying chicken, I was making burgers, I was mopping floors. I did that for about a year, and then I decided there was an advertisement in Stabrook News, and it said that they wanted journalists, reporters rather. And I
Mm.
applied thinking to myself, this is a long shot, but I'm gonna do it. And I got a call about 3 weeks after applying, and they said coming for an interview. I went in and I gave it my best shot, I guess. I know I was hungry, I was eager for it. I told the
Mm.
story of wanting it since I was 6 years old, and just an opportunity to learn and to progress in the field. And I did not get a call right back. I did not. I was devastated. I continued working. I was like, okay, this didn't happen. And then 2 months
Mm.
after, literally 2 months after, they called me and said, hey, start in a week. A week after that
Wow.
call, and that was it. But my first real first real idea or first real feel of journalism, it was a very tragic story. It happened sometime in 2011 or 2012. I can't remember. I can't remember off my mind, but there was a boat accident on the Essequibo, and some
Mm.
persons had died. And I was very young, and I got called into the office one day, and they was like, "Hey, we're gonna send you to Essequibo to cover this thing." And I was shocked because senior
Okay.
persons would go. So
Mm.
I got on a boat very early that morning. Mom and dad took me to Perica, and they sent me off, and I spent an entire day and came back after 7 that night, wrote the story, and I saw my name in the paper for the very first time. And I was very proud of it. And it from then on, it was just I guess the true potential of what I had started to come out, and it was really great. It was really great.
So you recognize that delay wasn't denial for you.
No,
Delay was
no,
definitely not. Just
yeah,
give you a chance to really, really know that you really want it. While you mop the
yeah,
floors and flip those chicken and stuff like that, those fries.
yeah,
You know, you kind of build your confidence in knowing that one day it might be a call for you, and it did come. So
yeah.
delay
It
wasn't
did come.
denial for you. I know your mom
Yeah.
told you that you better read because you got to represent the family, but who inspired who inspired or influenced your communication style growing up?
So there were different influences over time. I later became a television journalist, but that was the idea, to get on
Mm.
television. But when I first started, I emulated a lot of people. I love the way how Anderson Cooper was very direct when he
Mm.
asked certain questions. I really like that. Um,
CNN.
yeah, on CNN.
Mm.
Gordon Mosley was another one when he presented, the way how he commanded the attention. And I was really young when I got, my mom used to watch the news from 6 at night right up to the last one. And so over time, you had a chance to see everybody present. And so
Mm.
Gordon was one, the late Mondale Smith, who became my very good friend after a while. He was somebody who I also looked up to more than the others, because
Mm.
Mondale had a way that it was a talent beyond what I could imagine. When I did meet him and I did tell him, I said, "Hey, I grew up watching you on television." And he was like, "No, I'm not that old. Don't say that." But Mondale was somebody who I looked up to. The way how he was direct with people, the way how he went out answering questions. He was not just a great presenter on television, but he was a very good journalist as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, shouts out to them. You definitely are a good product of them, and
yeah.
here am I now talking to you, a journalist. Many people consume information casually, but journalists help shape public understanding. When did you recognize the weight and responsibility of that?
I think you feel it more as a journalist, the responsibility of journalism during particularly election time.
Hmm.
It's very important because I since practicing, I've covered 3 elections. I've been through 3 administrations, 3 different presidents. That is, and one of the things that often happens is that uh, people are shaped not only by the way how they would vote, but also what
Mm,
they're told. One of the things that I was conversing with a friend just recently, I said, politics has changed, and the way how politics is now broadcast or given to the people, it's different. Long ago, we had raised voting. I grew up with that.
mm,
Now it's a game of persuasion. It's a game of who could do better than what, and of course who has the money to do so, and so it's very different. But as a journalist, you feel the weight of it during election time because you have to be very careful, um, that you're not somebody who is making one party sound better than the other. And I think that to having to strike that balance between what is facts from what is promises, sometimes it gets clouded in some sense because everybody says something good. No one party is very honest during the
mm,
election time. And so what you find oftentimes is that as journalists, people look to you not only for the polls or the information as who winning, but also during the
mm.
campaign time to break it down, and to explain to people exactly what they're saying and what's factual and what's not. So that's where you feel it sometimes the most.
The most. I'm speaking to Stephen Vickerie here, journalist. He's all the way in Guyana, where the country of my birth, 83,000 square miles, land of many waters. And I am having a conversation with him as we aspire to encourage others to follow in his footsteps. And so let me take you to the segment where I want to talk to you about journalism and media. So you built over a decade in media. What changes have you seen in journalism from when you started to now?
So it's been about 13 years of practice altogether because I was somewhat say retire at one point. And we'll get into that later.
Retire, young
So
man. What? That's awesome.
so what when I first started getting information was not an easy thing, but you once you have the good connections and so forth, access to information at that time was pretty easy. What was also very great at that time is that um, people were more eager to understand and listen to journalists. People respected journalists as well. Bringing fast forwarding to 2026, that has taken a total 360. What you find happen now is that we have lack of information. Um, Oftentimes, if you're a journalist and you're writing for a particular agency, you're attacked. Um, and you're attacked by these rogue pages. I was recently a victim of that. And so what you find is that there's a concerted effort from persons. People would say they're from the administration or persons linked to the administration, so to say that they try to assassinate your character and bring down your credibility, which is something that every journalist has in terms of their credibility. It's different now. It's a fight. And what you find happen is that it's not only journalists personally, but it's also media houses. Like long ago, media houses still thrived, regardless of who or what they were from. Persons did a lot of advertising with them. As you know, recently Starbucks News closed down.
Yeah,
It says a
yeah.
lot. It says a lot about where we are as a society, and and there's been a how I would want to describe like a hands on the necks of independent media houses, slowly
Mm,
strangling them out, and so it's been quite
mm,
different. I did retire in 2020 because I said after the government change, I don't think I could do this. And you already started to see the signs of it.
mm,
And I decided to, start up a small business, get into human resource management. I had a few jobs over that time, trying to transition out of it. Um, And one of the things that I noticed is going back in it last year, because I ended up practicing journalism, not so to say directly with an agency, but I did it freelance wise. One of the things that I
Mm.
noticed is that journalists have it 10 times harder or 20 times harder now, especially if you're not a journalist from, state or state aligned media. It's very hard.
Mm.
It's very hard.
Mm. Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe that journalism today is becoming more informative or more performative?
I think it's more performative, honestly. Um, one of the things that you find is that there are persons who I came up with in the media who are journalists, and I'm talking about real journalists. And
Mm.
these were persons who asked the tough questions. You rub shoulders with them at press conferences. They were on the ball. I don't know what changed over time. Many of them now, in some sense, sold out. And what you find happening is that it's more of a performance. Some of them have been reduced to uh, PRs in some
Mm.
sense. They've lost all credibility. I don't know if they recognize it, but they've lost. Some of them have lost. I've lost respect for the way how they carry themselves now. It's really sad to see because as journalists, we always would say that it's the people first. It's the stories that we have to say. Is the information. It has to be informative. It has to benefit the people. But no, it's more like I'm gonna give you a script, and you
Mm.
have to say what we say. And I don't know if it's because of pressure, economic pressure or whatnot. I can't say, but it's different, and it's really sad, and to
Mm.
say to witness it unfold.
So, more into that, how difficult is it to balance speed versus accuracy in modern media, you would say?
It's different now because what I could say is that long ago we had 24 hours to put it in a newspaper, or we had
Mm.
the entire day to put together a news package for the news at night. No, because I do work in social media, and one of the
Mm.
things is that you have some days you have literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes to write something and put it up. I think the speed of information has increased. Everybody has become a journalist in some sense, or a citizen journalist in some sense, because now you can go live from a scene literally as a normal citizen,
Mm.
and you could get the same information or even more as an actual journalist. And so a lot of the times too, the public is shaped by non-journalists, the information they get from non-journalists, regular citizens, that is. And so you find that sometimes the media is now competing with public dissemination of information from normal citizens as well. So it's changed. It's changed. While some people do trust persons like myself and other um, media operatives for like correct information and all these
Mm.
different things, you are competing also with persons who are now calling themselves journalists. Long ago it was a badge of honor, and only certain people would have it, but now everybody's just doing it.
Well, it's a good way for me to segue into this question. Social media has created instant journalists. We just talked about that. Do you
Yeah.
think that this helps or hurts professional journalism?
I think it helps because I'm not one to say that things must be done traditionally. I believe that with time things evolve. I think, however, though, persons who are taking it up, that are broadcasting information, must also understand that there are ethics to it, and
Mm.
what you produce or what you put out there can have both a positive and negative impact on
Mm.
people. Information is powerful. I don't think people understand how powerful information is, and especially how it shapes their thinking. Because not everybody does a lot of reading. If they see something, they go off of it, and that's it. So I guess that's something that, for me, it's a shape. But I don't think anybody should be singled out really or truly to say, well, oh, you can't do this. I think everybody could be a journalist, but you have to be very careful with the way how what you're producing and putting out there.
Yeah, but what separates a real journalist from someone simply chasing views and you know virality?
I think the ethics of
Mm,
journalism um, prescribes that you must be balanced, you must be fair, and you
mm,
also must have discretion. A lot of the times, there are things that normal journalists do not put out there, and that's simply because there's a thing called discretion,
mm.
especially in a time now where everything is live, everybody's going live. One of the things I spoke about on social media the other day is that be very careful what kind of scenes you take live footage from, because those
Yeah,
things tend to remind the families of those persons. um, it's a constant reminder annually, and some persons get over trauma differently, and so it's also responsibility. I think those four things for me separate normal journalists from the ethic of it, basically.
hmm,
I think the ethics of it, yeah.
ethics. Yeah, I'll take that. But have you ever covered a story that emotionally stayed with you long after cameras were off?
Oh yeah, till now. There was a couple of years ago. This is before I left and went to St. Kitts, because I did work in St. Kitts for about a couple of years. This was in 2013. There was this fire that happened on Joseph Polydor Street, and a mother had gone out allegedly and left two children at home, and because there was no lights, no electricity to the house, um, they were lighting candles, and then maybe one of the candles fell, and the children got burned, and they died. I remember going to that scene and hearing them. I got there enough time to hear the children crying. And then it was just after a few minutes of hearing them crying, and persons were frantic outside saying, "Hey, you gotta get them out! You gotta get them out!" But they were so secure in that house. It was one of the most tragic things. And then the next morning, because the building burned for quite some time, and the next morning, they brought their bodies out, and everybody saw what was left of
I
those
could
children.
imagine that. Wow.
To this day, I always tell people that was one of the worst things I've experienced, and I've seen a lot. I've literally
Mm,
seen a lot as a journalist, but to see two bodies reduced to flesh and bone, charred remains, it was one of the worst things
mm,
I've ever experienced. Until now, I still remember it till now, ever
mm,
since 2013, this till now. I was able to do two big stories for Kaiser News. At the time, I was working for Kaiser News, and the papers just keep flying off the press, because you had an opportunity to talk to persons. I was
mhm,
there, so I was able to tell the story of what happened from the time I arrived. And the next day, I spoke to the mom. I had an exclusive with the mom. She tried to get into the house, and she received some burns. And so I was in the burn unit, all dressed up and everything, and spoke to her. And then next day, paper sell off again. Um, so those are the things. It brought up a lot of issues at that time.
mhm,
Where there was this big conversation about the way how children are abandoned, how children are left unattended, because you later learned from the child care and protection agency that these were two children who were constantly taken from her, and they escaped from where they were and they went back to her.
mm,
um yeah, it was a lot during that time. It was a lot of things coming out of that one story, but I think publicly people resonated with the fact that how they died, and how the alleged recklessness of the situation, because she was out. I had a video with her jumping out, a picture rather, or pictures of her jumping out of a taxi, heading into the house, calling for them. By that time, it was
mm.
lost.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Wow. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, man, I empathize with you with that. I've seen a lot too as a child protective services investigator, so I know what you mean. I can
Yeah.
relate to that. But what are some of the behind the scenes realities of media work people rarely understand? Some folks might see you, out there looking good in your suits and with a microphone. But what are some of the work that people rarely understand what you do?
Oh. Oh wow. Yes. I was asked this question before. Journalists do not get sleep. We
Mm.
rarely sleep. My mom can tell you I used to get up sometimes 2, 3. When I was writing for newspaper, that is, it became much easier with television, even to television sometimes. You got to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Something happened. You got to get out there with a camera. Um, you might be uh, at a bar with some friends enjoying a nice after work thing. You chilling, and you got to get out there. It's there's a lot that goes into it. There's no life. You try to have a life in some sense, a social life outside of journalism, but journalism is journalism. You live it, and you
Mm.
recognize that this is what it is. I'll tell you a story about the night of the no confidence motion in 2018. My
Mm.
friend and I, we were at OMG. We had a pretty tough week because if I don't know if people remember how heated the no confidence motion was that entire week. It was a lot going on. Persons were saying, oh, they're going to be people crossing over. You're asking politicians if it's true. And so it was very hectic. And we had a tough day that day because a lot of things happened. And then I got a call around 2 o'clock in the morning saying that, hey, you got to come into the office 2 o'clock, 2 a.m., and do a recording for a special report. And um, it was crazy. It was really really crazy. I had to go in and do an entire special report at 3 a.m. Never left the studio after 5 in the morning. I had to go home, maybe get 3 hours sleep, come out back because, of course, after that no confidence motion, it was just crazy. Politics wise, it then went from being politics into the judiciary, and there was a lot going on, and so I did not have much sleep at that time. So that was one thing that people don't quite understand. The journalists not necessarily, they don't really sleep often. The other thing
Mm.
too I can often say is that you find that most journalists too don't really have committed relationships,
Okay.
because you're consumed so much, putting in the effort to get the news out there and everything. Oftentimes, you don't have the time to commit to someone,
Mm.
and so that's another sacrifice of itself. Even if you
Mm.
do have like a marriage or a girlfriend or something, sometimes it doesn't end. It doesn't really pan out long because there's a lot of pressure to it. The
Mm.
other thing too is that the public sometimes forgets that we're also humans, and we have, certain things that we want to do. And so there's this added pressure when especially when you're on television and you're a public figure. So you can't be seen certain places, you can't do
Yeah.
certain things. And so there's this unrealistic expectation placed on you
Mm.
oftentimes. And I think that's the hard, I think I had to learn that as a news anchor, that sometimes people have a perception of you and they don't quite understand. Let's say if they see you at a bar sitting down drinking 2 beers, they're like, oh, why are you doing that? You're not supposed to
Yeah.
do that. You're a public figure. But forgetting that there's a human part of you. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for that. That explains a lot. That explains a lot. But in your opinion, what stories in Guyana are underreported or overlooked?
Wow. um I think public accountability now,
Mm.
2026. um Oftentimes what happened in the past, we had post cabinet press briefings, where a representative from the government would meet with the media weekly and talk about things that the cabinet would have discussed, they agreed on. We would have questions basically about what's happening in terms of oil and gas, how much money getting in. Presidents and public officials back then, and I'm talking about like 5 or 10 years ago, were very open to answer questions. They had good relations with the media. Um, and what you find now is that there's a lack of communication. And then now there are journalists who are afraid to ask questions. And so what you find happening often is public accountability, in terms of what's going on with Exxon and the money that is coming in. I think another aspect of it too is another thing that's underreported is rape. Um, I think oftentimes we underestimate how many rape is happening. Suicide is another thing that I think is being underreported. We had signed a memorandum of understanding as journalists a couple of years ago where we said we were not going to report on or not glamorize suicide because there is a copycat effect to it. But what has happened over the years is that it's been happening. It's been underreported because you know it's hard to get information on those things. You just hear it happening here and there. You just see somebody post something on social media, and then when you ask the question, like, yeah, this person took their own life. So there are several things that are underreported, but those are the main ones. Politics, I think, is also, even though it's very out there, and people reporting it a lot, I don't think people get into what's really going on with politics. And so I think that's another
Mm.
aspect of it that is underreported as well.
Okay. I'm speaking to Steven Vickerie, a journalist in Guyana, South America, and we're talking about his journey as a journalist. And so I want to segue into more of your entrepreneurship and your logo media services, if we may. What inspired the creation of logo media services? Tell us.
So logo is an abbreviation. It means love on God only.
Mm,
Um, One of the things that happened during the COVID pandemic was that you were home most of the time, and I was sustaining myself because I had already resigned, well, not resigned, I had already retired as a journalist
mm,
shortly after COVID. Um, and so I had to find, like, I was getting into this, I was doing a lot of reading. And so one of the things I had done was to sharpen some skills. I went into this skill set thing where I wanted to learn things outside of journalism. And so I sharpened my skill on video editing, even though I had that skill. I sharpened my skill on video editing. I sharpened skill on graphics designing. Um, and one of the things I did, I was like, okay, let me start up this business. It was really rocky at first, really and truly, because one of the things that you often find is that everybody's doing graphics now, and then
mm,
you have to compete with AI as well now. And so one of the things that one of the challenges I had during that time was basically finding that niche market. But I must say that it's been a very slow road, but
mm,
it's been really great. Recently, I recently designed a magazine for a an environmental an environmental body that works along with people like the UNDP. And so it was a 50-page magazine, and I was really impressed. It took like a couple of months, but I was really impressed with the level of depth and watching from where I started from now to now and the
mm.
growth. So I think that that's one of the things that really pushes me to go ahead and do that, and it's going to be bigger because every day I'm sitting down thinking what else I can do,
Mm.
and so it's growing. It's definitely growing.
I certainly love your logo, Love on God Only. And I want
Yeah.
to go back there because I want to know more. What does your company represent beyond business?
What it represents beyond business is an appreciation for art.
Okay.
What I find oftentimes is that what I find, and I often tell people or the clients that I meet, is that every project is unique. So if you come to me and say I have to get a logo, or I have to get a book cover design, or have a party coming up, I need a flyer or something. Everything has to be unique in its own way. And I think
Mm.
one of the things is that you have to have that eye for detail, I guess, in some sense, yeah. Mhm. And
Awesome.
so one of the
Awesome.
things about to go back to your question, what it means is that apart from business, it's also an appreciation or a culmination of all the things that has happened for me, not only personally but religiously, in my own faith. I'm gonna admit it, I'm not a big church goer, but I cannot ever say that I'm ungrateful for all the things that the Lord has done for me
Mm.
over um, over the period of COVID, prior to COVID, while I was away, everything has just been a testimony in some sense.
That is awesome. Gratitude coming from Stephen Vickery. I'm talking to him in Guyana. He's in Guyana. I'm in the USA, and a journalist, an entrepreneur, and I got some questions, and I hope that folks in the audience would have some questions for you also, Stephen. I am the interviewer, but I still want to give persons a chance to ask a question. If you need to be motivated as to who is Stephen Vickery, please drop your question in so we can ask it on the thread right here. This is Forefront Today. I'm yours truly, DJ Quinn, your matured mixer, and we go up until I feel I see his eyes getting sleepy. So is that okay, Stephen?
Yeah, it's all right.
you
It's
know,
all
when you catch a
right.
journalist, you want to get some wisdom from journalists. And since you can't get so many others, I'm going to start with you, Stephen. And you're
Yeah,
spitting some wisdom so far, and I hope the
yeah,
people are guided and inspired by what you're saying. But
yeah.
what were some of the biggest challenges you faced building your own media brand?
Some of the challenges that I had faced was there were internal things, there were personal things. I doubt myself a lot.
Mm,
And so when I started, um, I had about three different logos before I decided on this one, the black and gold one that I currently have. The thing about it is that people often say, "Hey, you're very creative," or I get complimented for certain things in
mm,
terms of journalism, and now this skill set. But I always like the first thing I had to get over was what's going on in my mind, and I think it's happened with a lot of people over time where sometimes we put ourselves in this prison that we don't really see our true potential. And so that was the first challenge. I had to really hone what I can do and who I am, and also learn that it's only it's only something that could be developed over time. And so that
mm,
is what I did back then. That's what I'm still doing now because I never go through life thinking, hey, you're the best. There are things that you can learn over time, and you do learn those things. The
mm,
second challenge I think for me was getting into a field of there are other persons that are doing it and they've expanded. And oftentimes I'm telling myself, hey, you know, take it one step at a time. You know, the goal is to have something big, multiple employees. I'm working to that. But I think that was one of and the other challenge was starting with capital. These
mm.
things, these softwares and so forth cost money, and I didn't have it at that time. And so I've started to put in and invest, learning to invest not only in me, but in also the business was also another challenge. And those were the small things. And of course, there was a minor one where you dealt with all sorts of people.
Yeah,
Um, I've
personalities.
had,
Mhm,
yeah, I've had some really um, I had some really messed up customers over time. I'm not gonna call name
mm,
or anything, but one of the things that I've learned is to understand the ethics of business and to stand
mm,
on that. I think what many entrepreneurs get into is the fact that I start a business and I'm gonna do well, and then people just want things like free work or so forth. There
mm.
is something that there is the character in the comics called the Joker. One of the things that I love that he said, even though he's a villain, but one of the things that I love that he says is that anything you're good at, don't do it for free.
Mm.
Um, and so that has pushed me in some sense to be very more serious with business, and also to understand what you can do to prevent yourself from dealing with certain people and so forth. So I've learned those things over time.
You said what you come back again with it. What you can do well, don't do it for free. Tell me again. I need to hear that from you again.
Anything that you're good at, do not do it for free.
All right, I'm taking that. I am taking
Yeah.
that. But many young creatives struggle with consistency, Stephen. How important is discipline in entrepreneurship?
You have to uh, most people that are entrepreneurs right now, especially in Ghana, they have 9 to 5 jobs, they have children, they have
Mm,
things that are outside of that. I think what's important is that if you put aside an hour a day or maybe 5 hours a week and say, well, I'm going to focus on building this business, you have to be able to invest as well, not only your
mm,
time but also your knowledge, because things change over time. And I think what happened with many creatives or persons who are entrepreneurs is that they get comfortable You know,
Mm.
if they're making like a 10,000 a week or roughly 50,000 a week, there's a okay, this is what we're going to do, rather than thinking about um, goals, setting goals, expansion, and all these different things. That's why it's important. And I always tell other entrepreneurs it's important to learn, not just call yourselves entrepreneurs, but to learn and to engage with other entrepreneurs, because I do that a lot. Every time I meet somebody who has a business, I ask questions
Yeah,
um, about,
networking.
you know,
Hmm.
networking as well. And so you have to take those opportunities, especially that could relate to the same questions you're asking about um, the struggles that you might have with starting up a business, or being able to push yourself. Those are things that other things that entrepreneurs can relate to. So it's very important as well to find one or two people and ask those questions.
Mm. Awesome. So, what advice would you give someone wanted to enter media but lacking confidence or support? I know that already you said some things that folks can emulate from you, but let's go deeper in that. Tell someone that wanted to enter media but lacking confidence or support. Talk to them.
So I'm gonna start with journalism, then I get into business right afterwards. I think for persons who are desirous of becoming journalists, I think that you have to realize that journalism is not just about traveling or getting popular or looking nice on television or gaining a following. Those are positives to it. But you have to also be very careful that people trust you, and once you become somebody who people can trust, then you have to also ensure that everything you do from then has to be within the certain barriers or the ethics of journalism. And you have to learn the ethics of journalism very early. What we have right now in terms of the media landscape is persons who are getting into journalism because it's easier to collect a script from somebody and just report what they're telling you to do. The truth of the matter is that's not journalism. Journalism is hard. It's a lot of hard work, and also it's also a pretty much a sacrifice up until you get to that point where you're like, yeah, I don't necessarily need to do this, or I have enough connections to do that. You also have to be very mindful of who you're engaging with politics wise. I think some journalists over time have learned the hard way um, with doing that, and so you have to be very objective in your approach to everything. In terms of business and entrepreneurial skills, I think you also have to be very careful of what you're getting into. Not because maybe things like selling water is a fast money earner, or maybe you're going to do a food business or something. You have to understand that business is standard, and if you can't uphold that standard, then you're going to find yourself in a very serious position where you're going to start out hot and sweaty and then you're done. I have lost count of the amount of times that persons, I guess, especially Guyanese, have businesses and they start out really well, and then the standards just drop, especially in the in the field of like restaurants or food or entertainment. The standard just eventually drop off afterwards. So you have to be very consistent, knowing that if you're providing this service, this is the service you're going to provide for the next 20 years. I always refer to the establishments in Ghana that has gone on and done really well for themselves because they've kept the standards, and that standard has kept them over the years. So keep a standard. Make sure that whatever business that you're going into, that you have that standard. Most importantly, as well, you also have to be very serious and committed to what you're doing. Don't just start it and then say, "Oh, I have enough money, I'm done." There are going to be hard times. There are times when you're putting in 100% and you're only getting back 10. You have to be very consistent as well to ensure that you're doing enough, or not to be discouraged by what may happen during that time.
Awesome. Looks like I got Cornell Alexander with us, and he has a question for you, Stephen. He
Mm.
says, good night. He's locked in and watching. I would like to ask Javon if he was to give any advice to someone who is thinking about getting into journalism right now it's so much free streaming and everyone looking to do lives, what would you say?
Right. My advice is, as I was mentioning before, learn the ethics of journalism. I think that is the cornerstone of getting into the profession. It's not just being able to say that, okay, I want to aspire to be a journalist. You have to understand that you got to be fair, you have to be balanced, and you have to be someone that people trust in terms of information. And that's a huge responsibility that many of us as journalists carry even today. The other thing too is that get enough sleep now, because you don't get that much afterwards, after you become a journalist. And know that sometimes when, even with editors, when they become difficult, it's not that they're trying to pull you down, or the publisher. You have to understand that it's all it's your building skill set, because journalists are very tough people, and you have to be tough facing politicians, even the president. You have to have a mentality to know that you have to, be direct, especially when you're trying to get information out there. But you have to also, most importantly, study. I find that there's a lot of journalists now who don't have the qualification to be a journalist. That does not mean that they're not good at their jobs, but it's very important, especially in 2026, or in a time like now, that you also sharpen your skill in terms of communication, because that helps in the long run as well.
That's good. But all the streaming he's talking about, free streaming, what's your advice now? I know you talk about authenticity, but it's free now. The folks don't have to do all that you did because it's free streaming. What's your take on that?
For me, it's a challenge, but I think one of the things that you have to do, in some sense, is learn to balance it. There must be a balance. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah.
Because long ago, journalism was broadcasted in a specific way, and it's
Yeah.
different now. And so, most importantly, you have to be current with the times, but also you have to be very careful as to what are the freedoms you might have in terms of streaming and so forth. Because if you're somebody who people trust in terms of information, they're going to believe everything that you say. And if you say something that is untrue, or you don't have the facts on, it can create havoc, as we've seen in the past. I
Mm.
always remember Adriana Young. Misinformation was going left, right, and center, and it was a very confusing time at that time. And
Mm.
so that is how important. And I don't know if it answers the question about, the free streaming and everything that is happening. You have to be very careful of what you're putting out there if you're going to take on journalism.
Thank you, Stephen. I teach soft skills, the skills you can't learn in a university or college.
Mhm.
Soft skills, which include critical thinking, empathy, you know, uh, confidentiality, time management. And you talked about networking, one of the soft skills. How important is networking and relationship building in your industry?
Networking is important because, particularly in journalism, you can be 10 places at once, and sometimes 40 things happen at once. And
Mm.
so, having a good network, would you have to rely sometimes on colleagues? Okay, I have this, you have this, let's exchange it. Um, and we do that from time to time. The other thing too is that networking, you have a sense or an understanding of what's going on, in society, because sometimes as journalists we're in this bubble, because we think that, okay, this is our interpretation of it. But sometimes networking and engaging, sometimes even with the public, it really helps to understand or shape the way how you tell the stories. So that's for journalism. But for entrepreneurship, what is really important is that there sometimes, what I find is that their jobs are sometimes what happen. How do I put this? There are times when, you're doing business in a particular way, and somebody else might have a connection, or they're doing something that is really that is expandable. and you can adapt what they're doing to your business and the benefits to it. Sometimes you get jobs from other people because what happens is that sometimes you have so much to do in terms of work that you can share the work with other people, and so you build good relations with that as well. So
Mm.
it's important to network with people that have similar business acumen or similar forms of business, or it could be something outside of it because sometimes you have to rely on each other in terms of services as well.
Javon, you talked about retirement and all that stuff, getting me jealous. You look still pretty young to me. Uh, but that is good. That's good where you could work long enough that you can think about retirement. But have there been moments where people underestimated you because of your age or your vision?
It happened in early parts of journalism, very early parts of journalism, because I started when I was 17. I was really young when I started, and so when I left Ghana to head to St. Kitts to work as a journalist, um, one of the things is that I was like around 19, 20, and when I got there, I realized that there are journalists who are in their 40s, in their 30s, and you're in a press conference and sometimes you're asking the head of state direct questions. I mean, you're from another country, and so oftentimes people underestimated the fact that I was young. But I had that early grounding and training,
Mm.
especially working with people like Mr. Prasad from Sabbath News, the former editor in chief. I worked with persons like Mr. Harris in Kaiser
Mm.
News, and I've had exposure to really great people. And even working at HGP Nightly News with Mr. Eugene Noel, who was a huge, huge, huge part of what people see or what people were seeing at the time when I was an anchor and reporting. It's the constant development over that time. Um, so yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of times because of that, sometimes you doubt yourself because
yeah,
people,
yeah.
yeah, was there a time that you doubted yourself? I know you said earlier that, you wanted to give it up, but you doubt your ability though? Have you doubted your
Yeah,
ability to do
yeah,
that?
many times, many times, many times. I've lost count of the amount of times I've said I'm giving up journalism. I'm done. You
Mm,
know, there's pressure to it. There's pressure
mm,
from the place that you work. Sometimes you establish yourself as somebody who is trustworthy and you're popular, and then there's pressure that comes down from the place that you work sometimes, and even editors in chief, where they want you to do more. It's like squeezing milk out of coconuts and there's nothing left at times. And
yeah.
so there's a pressure of that as well. But I think one of the things that I have to often remind myself was that you're only one person. You're only one
Mm,
person. And one of the things that I when I retired, and at that time when I came out of journalism, so I'm done. One of the things I had to remind myself was that you have to take care of yourself and your mental
mm,
health, because there's so much pressure that is applied, and people don't realize this, but journalists go through a lot.
mm.
The disrespect from politicians, sometimes even the public now, it tells on you. And so you have to take care of yourself. Remember that you have to take care of yourself most first and foremost.
I guess practicing the power of pause and using
Yeah,
those soft skills to
yeah,
practice that. You don't
yeah.
learn that in school. But I like it that you knew that you want to be somebody, and so you got the education you needed. You went into education and law and engineering. You probably moved the goalpost a couple of times. You know, you ascribed to being this person at this time, and then you moved the goalpost to something else. Tell us about you pursuing degrees in both engineering and law. There's a serious intellectual commitment there. Why those two fields?
So, funny story, very funny story. So, I had applied for a Go scholarship. I had done a program through this, I think it was the Scottish, the UK training, is a UK qualification that you need. And
Mm,
so, completing that course for about a year, I gained automatic entry into a degree course, which is engineering, and then I saw a goal put out another thing, and so I was like, okay, let me see if I could apply for law, because I think my love for law and ethics and all of those things came up because I spent most of my young years as a journalist in the court system. I
Mm.
contributed a lot of court stories, and so I got an understanding of how court works. And so at my age right now, trying to expand, because while the goal was journalism for most of the years, and I think at this point in my where I'm at right now and what is happening in terms of Guyana, I just felt that there was a need to expand my horizon. And
Mm.
so studying both engineering and law is not an easy thing. I do manage, since it's like I'm basically my first year for both of them. Both of
Okay.
them are scholarship based, so I have to keep up a certain GPA to continue my
Mm.
scholarship. Um, and so one of the things that I wanted to do was not to limit myself because I'm in my 30s, but to just
Mm.
to expand and to do something else that is could be meaningful. As you know, Guyana is developing. Guyana is
Yeah.
developing at a very fast rate, and so I heard the finance minister said recently that he's encouraging young people to gain skills or to diverse their education because there's so much opportunity coming that they don't even have the persons for it as yet. And so it's just getting myself prepared for what's next for Guyana, whatever that may be. Because what's happening right now is that a lot of young people are being left behind because the landscape of Guyana has changed, and some persons are catching on while some have gotten comfortable and they're just being left behind, so to say. So it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing, but I think for me, it's the vision now is to get into a field where I can benefit and learn at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah. How about learning and getting paid while you learn? That's where apprenticeship comes in. And so
yeah,
even here in the USA, the government is putting out money. There's a blueprint for our young ones from middle school, high school, to think about becoming an apprentice because you get paid. And like I tell the kids, you probably will get paid more than I am getting paid as an
yeah,
apprentice because the guys who fix our roads, our bridges, and build our skyscrapers and drive those cranes and big trucks,
mhm,
guess what? They're getting like $40 an hour,
yeah,
$41 an hour, right? You just got to be able to wake up early and go to site, have reliable transportation, 3 days in the classroom, and the other
mhm,
days in the field, and you are making good money, and you don't have to pay it back a school loan. And so apprenticeship,
yeah,
I don't know how it is in Guyana, but over here, that's what we push: apprenticeship programs, entrepreneurship programs, and encourage our youth to think about that because not everybody needs to end up in college. Not
mhm,
everybody's going to go to the military. Not everyone family have a business they can get into. So who's going to fix our bridges, our roads 10 years from
yeah,
now?
yeah.
These folks who monopolized and the jobs before, guess what? They're getting older, they're dying, and the children don't like it. They
Yeah,
have a different skin tone, but the children don't like it. So what do you think is going to happen 10, 20 years from now? Who's going to do these jobs? So apprenticeship programs, I'm encouraging you parents who are watching this or come back later on and watch it, encourage your students in the home to seek out apprenticeship programs. Okay? Encourage them to become apprentice. You get paid while you learn a skill set. Go ahead, Stephen.
yeah, yeah. I think that's very important. I think there are programs that are being adopted now, but it's not in a large scale. So what you
Mm,
find is that there's a huge interest in apprenticeships, in even being interns, just to get the actual experience. But what has happened is that it's only like a very small window. So you find that there's like 1,000 applicants just going for
mm,
maybe two, three, four opportunities, and so a lot of people miss out. And it is something that I was engaging with a minister recently of government, and I said to him, I said, you guys need to start investing in entrepreneurial and apprenticeship opportunities. Let
I've been
people
saying that a long
feel
time.
Yeah, let people feel what it is to get into certain jobs, Because what you find happening is that everybody hear about oil and gas and how much money oil and gas people make. But the thing about it is that even in mining, because I was in human resource office in the interior for a mining company, and you have to work 12 hours a day every single day for an entire month.
Mm,
There's no sleep, and so it's money that you make, but you have to work hard. And I think if a lot of young people get an opportunity to feel what it is like, or to have an
mm,
opportunity to at least have that hands-on approach and training, it would make a difference, especially with especially what government is saying is that there are multiple opportunities coming up, which happens in any oil and gas economy or any state. There are a lot of opportunities that do arise, but how will they know what to expect or what they're getting into if there are limited opportunities? And it's not a government thing, it's just that many businesses or establishments don't necessarily see the investment in it now, because if let's say for instance most companies now, if they can't get the expertise locally, they source it outside.
right.
You
Which
understand
is the
me?
reason why they ought to think about career fairs, career
Yeah,
takeovers, expose the youths to careers, to these opportunities. And then you expose them to it, then they explore it, and then you equip them with the skills that is necessary
yeah,
because they are in-demand jobs. And so unless they understand the three concept, explore, expose, and equip, 10 years from now, we're going to drive over bridges that are going to be crumbling, perhaps, and have no one
yeah,
to fix them. So I've been
yeah,
encouraging folks to think about apprenticeship programs. And
yeah.
so, well, how do you balance your academics, your media, entrepreneurship, and your personal life, Stephen? Tell us, give us that
Oh,
balance.
I am not balancing, I'll be very honest. It's not easy because what happens is that the classes, thankfully, with one university that I study at currently, they give you an opportunity. If you can make a class, you can review it afterwards.
Mm,
You have time to get certain work done. The other is study at your own pace. So you could commit 5 hours within a week and you get certain. So that's the great part about it. But
mm,
sometimes
mm,
when you're taking on certain jobs, it literally takes your entire life. I kid you not. And I do have a regular 9 to 5 job that I would do. And so balancing everything, sometimes you don't get sleep. So when I get an opportunity to sleep, I just sleep. I really
yeah,
don't go anywhere.
yeah.
So balancing it is not an easy thing. I am still learning how to do that. But at the end of the day, I'm still doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. But
Mm.
sometimes there's pressure. There's a lot of pressure to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the word learning. What does lifelong learning mean to you personally?
Lifelong learning is continuous. You
Mm,
just can't sit down and think, okay, I'm taking on this, so I've learned it. I've studied this for 4 years. I know everything. No. There are certain things a classroom would not teach you that you learn outside of the world. I learned that with journalism. I learned as well that sometimes you have to be open to new things, especially in a time where technology is vastly developing. You know, there are things that
mm,
happen. So don't just settle for what you do know. It has to be a continuous learning over time. And this is for everyone. If you're young, middle age, or you're a senior, there are things that you must be open to because those things help in the long run.
yep. But do you think that today's society values education for knowledge or merely for status?
I think it's a bit of both. Because as it is right now with Guyana, and I can tell you this for a fact, um, Guyanese are more getting onto studying, to getting their degrees. Some people are doing
Mm,
masters. Um, the government making education free. What has happened is that everybody are now taking the opportunity to learn a skill or to
mm,
pursue different things. And what is slowly happening is that people are becoming more educated, and it's a bit of both for knowledge and also status because of course if you're someone that has a degree you have a better chance of earning more money.
mm,
um, Sadly, I don't know if I could say this. Sadly, there are persons who have their jobs who ask for degrees and
Mm.
masters, and they do not want to pay you
Okay.
for that. It's an awful thing because it's been happening more so sometimes in the private sector. I'm talking about the local private sector.
Okay.
And so what you find happening now, and the private sector did say this recently, is that not much people are going for jobs in the private sector. They're going for more established companies that have certain structure and certain pay structures that respect your level of education, your knowledge, and
Okay.
expertise. And I
Mm.
respect that, but I just feel like sometimes studying is not an easy thing. And I just wish that more businesses would respect that and understand that if someone acquires a degree or a master's, then you must pay them according to their level of education.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's really sad that in Guyana, uh, a company a company wants you to work for them, and they're paying you next to nothing. I know people
Mm.
who I know people who have a basic high school education earning more than persons that have degrees, and that's because of the
Mm.
years of experience. But I think there's a gap. So there's a gap between what is respect of a
Mm.
person's educational status, and there's also a gap between um, what can be a compensation, because in a job people do continuous development, and you have to recognize and integrate those persons into your company, especially if they gain experience or education in
Right.
certain fields. You
Hmm.
must invest in them, but that's not happening, not on a large scale. And so what you find, and if you look at the recent report where they said there's a huge brain drain, persons are
Mm.
leaving Guyana that are experienced and educated, and so it's just the level of disrespect sometimes that people face.
Yeah, right here in the thread, we got teachers, we got skills, skillful men on the thread right here now. Don't let me call them out because that would make Guyana know that they're over here in the States. But they're in the thread, and so we definitely need to look towards that. But then, how important is reading? I want to go back to how important is reading to develop critical thinking and communication skills. How important is working on these soft skills with what you're doing and even in entrepreneurship for our young people to develop them early in middle school, high school. How important is it for them to develop that?
There, I one of the things that I in my earlier years I've always said that reading is fundamental.
Mm,
Reading is fundamental to everything. I mean, if there are things that you don't understand, you have to read in order to understand. And this is coming from somebody that read every book or most books, just to have that knowledge on certain things. Because I always had a hunger for knowledge
mm,
in different fields. And so even while I was practicing as a journalist, there are things that you had to read about. If you're writing a story on infrastructure, you have to understand what infrastructure is.
yeah.
If you're writing a
Use the
story on,
language.
yeah, if you're writing a story on politics, you have to understand the dynamics of politics, and that comes with the history of Guyana, understanding the history of why we're here where we are now. And so, oftentimes, as a journalist, and I consider the last for my colleagues, you have to read a lot. But
Mm,
one of the things that I found recently is that there are persons who gain knowledge from reading, and there are persons who do it visually in terms of they go on YouTube and they learn. And
right.
so I tell people that if you're not somebody who grasps a concept by reading, try doing visual, because they're visual learners as well. People who pick up things as well. It's
Mm,
just you having to find what you're comfortable with, because there are people who can see something and do it and understand somebody else doing it rather than reading it from a book, or they gain knowledge from seeing something that is that they're looking at on YouTube. YouTube has become
mm,
very resourceful. So it's just finding what you're comfortable with in terms of your learning. But reading is fundamental. Reading has a big difference, and it's not just learning to read eloquently or properly. in some sense. It's basically grasping what is what's on a page or the concept of what it is.
Stephen, in my time, we read Louis L'Amour, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Vamos Amigos. Give us some of the books that you think people need, some of the authors perhaps, or materials that impacted you and your mindset to most in your time.
Mm. So I read Shakespeare.
Mm,
Um, I read Shakespeare. And I think the good thing about Shakespeare is that while some of it was hard to read because it's in a different language in some sense, it develops your writing skill, and it also develops the way how you think or write creatively. But I was also a fan of the Hardy Boys as well. I was a fan of the Hardy Boys, but one of the things that I absolutely enjoyed reading was the editorials, Sunday editorials, in the newspapers. I think it helped develop the way, I mean, apart from the news and what you see in terms of stories, editorials give you an understanding of what an opinion is, and it drives conversation as well. So those are some of the things that when I was pretty young, I used to read a lot, especially editorials. There was this column in the newspaper called Murder Mysteries, where they were
mhm.
looking at things, unsolved murders or so forth, and that was something that I absolutely loved reading as well, as a youth. I think if I should advise people, I would tell them read up on what is happening in the world right now. I
Mm.
find that a lot of people are detached from what's going on in news and
Realities of. Mhm.
current affairs. There, if you ask the regular, a normal Guyanese, what do you know about oil and gas? Not much people could divulge and tell you. And there's not just understanding what oil and gas is, but what's happening right now in terms of Guyana.
Mm.
Also understand some of the implications of what's going on in the world, how it's affecting things like food prices, high gas prices, and so forth. Those are things that you can also read up on, and these things are a click away. We have things
Yeah.
like AI now. AI now, where I realized the other day I saw somebody asking AI a question, and they were literally reading out to them the
Mhm.
information, so you can have conversations. I mean, you have to be very careful with AI as well. Don't get me wrong, but you can also read up there. There are things that are a click away,
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
can sensitize yourself about. But it's very important to understand what's happening around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Bible talks about for the lack of knowledge, people shall perish in some
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to, you know, to be afraid with what's going on around you.
Yeah, some people put on a bridle. They don't want to hear nothing else. They just want to
Yeah,
look straight ahead. And I'm not concerned. Me and my two or
yeah.
three, four, five. That's it. I don't care about what's happening in other parts of the world. But you will care when you get to the airport and laws have changed and you can't travel with certain things. And for lack of knowledge, guess what?
Yeah,
They seize it
yeah,
or they lock you up. So we have to just find time to read and know what's
hmm,
happening in current affairs. But
yeah.
Stephen, engineering teaches structure, right? Law teaches reasoning. Journalism teaches communication. How does those worlds complement each other in your life? Engineering, law, journalism. How does it complement your life?
One of the things, because I'm a first year student of both degree programs, one of the things that I'm learning now is that there are things that we take for granted in terms of when something is 5 feet long, or the way how we position a bed in a bedroom, or how we put
Mm,
TVs on a wall, or why a house is pointed in a certain direction, why streets are made in a certain way. There are things
mm,
that we look at and we take for granted. And I think for me at this point with engineering is that I'm learning a lot about how simple uh, engineering practices could develop and make a society better. I don't know when last we've been to Ghana.
Last year I was there. It was September. Yeah.
Yeah, you saw how vast Guyana has become. Guyana is
Oh yeah, I
becoming.
see some high rise. I saw some huge
Yeah,
buildings next to some small ones. I don't
yeah,
know. Yeah,
yeah. So
it's become.
Guyana, yeah. So engineering teaches you when you look at something, you be like, this is not right. Like I was telling somebody, Josh Young has a building code, and for
Yeah.
some reason we're flouting it. And you learn about these things. A other thing with law for me that I'm learning as well is that Guyana's law needs reform. We hear about law reform constantly, but we don't understand how law reform affects people. And so what I'm learning about that as well is that there are things that needs to change in terms of the law. I've not quite gotten into it fully as yet, but I think what all of it has done in terms of journalism, engineering, and law is giving me a different perspective of how I see things. I had a different perspective on life, especially journalism. I saw things kind of one dimensional and looking at both sides. But I think having to go into the profession, having to study it, you slowly understand that these are the small things that make that becomes big decisions in terms of national development as well. So yeah, it's all an eye-opening thing for me. The journey has just started, yeah, but it has given me so much perspective on certain things so far.
Awesome. I am speaking to Steven Vickerie. I'm so grateful you find the time to come on in to talk to me here in CRL 365. Also grateful for those of you who are coming on in on the thread, saying good night, and some of you are leaving comments. We still have a moment to ask Steven a question if you want to get something clarified. Cornell, thank you so much, Cornell Alexander. He says, so true. Everyone is more focused on entertainment and some of the nonsense people are putting out. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's a conversation we need to have, and he admires what we're doing here tonight, Stephen.
Mm,
And so I'm glad that
mhm.
somebody's seen that we are making a difference.
Yeah.
We're not talking about skin your whatever on whatever. So we're not gonna have a whole
Mm,
thousand people come on here tonight, but we're talking about things that will impact our young people, and we are
yeah.
thinking about how can we have them emulate what you've done. And so we're not going to have a whole lot of people come on tonight, but maybe they'll come on later on and hear from us
Mm,
what we talked about and be motivated to take some of these things to their homes and help our youths to develop a different mindset. Because too many of our youths just pull out a phone. Everyone's got a phone now, and everything is on social media. A fight in school is on social media.
mhm.
Back in the day, we were scared to fight even behind the school. Now they're
Yeah.
fighting in the streets.
Yeah.
They're fighting in the
I think
classroom. They're beating up the teachers.
yeah. I think what has happened over time is that we had a certain respect for teachers.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I there wasn't one that I did not fear. And it wasn't just the respect that teachers placed on themselves, it was the parents that
Mm,
insisted that you respect those persons. I think what has happened is that now parents fighting with teachers. A teacher talk to a child a little too rough, fight them.
mm-hmm.
I mean, where did we as a society go from being uh, one with a teacher, an educator, because while you're teaching children at home certain moral things, education is also a part of a child's development. Since when do we get to this place where we want to be the teacher because they're correcting them?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard one girl said, "I don't beat my child, so I want somebody else beat my child." Like
Mm-hmm.
how did we get to that? And what you find now with young people is that there's a breakdown of parental supervision as well. And
Of course.
so what you find happen is that society is raising a bunch of young people that don't have the parental supervision, that are going through life without understanding what is right from wrong. There's a big gap between what's right and wrong right now. We got people as low as 14 and 15 committing crimes. Look, there was a video the other day that I posted on my Facebook page the community policing group stopped them along with the police, and they got cutlass, weed,
Mm-hmm.
knives. I don't know who they were about to rob or whatnot. And these guys are between 14 and 16. How?
Yeah. Yeah.
We realize that children are missing from our homes. What are we doing in terms of our parents? There are certain things I am afraid of doing now as an adult with my parents. You understand me? You have that, but I think what has happened is that we've broken down as a society.
Mm-hmm.
We've really broken
Yeah.
down as a society. And the communities are no longer helping with raising children. Long ago, communities, persons in the community had, if you know you can do it, there are persons that used to come up and motivate and help to develop children. Now, everybody just minding their own business.
Yeah. But do you believe that social media is creating more informed citizens or more distracted minds?
Oh, distracted minds. Yes, very much
Mm.
distracted. I do most of my work, my 9 to 5 job, on social media. And you can post something on a news site that says, "Oh, the government is going to change." Um, let's say, for instance, they're going to change taxes, and nobody's really interesting. But let's say two people fighting on Facebook, abusing out one another. People
Mm.
are engaged. Thousands of
Yeah.
people are engaged, and so where is the priority? And I never understood how, and slowly people are getting detached from the reality of what's going on in Guyana. And what has
Mm-hmm.
happened by extension is that this is where politicians are benefiting from, because when a society is more desensitized from what benefits them or what they need to know, then they just do what they want because nobody's looking.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand me? Nobody is asking the question as to why certain things are happening. Because we're more
Mm.
interested in two people fighting or two women abusing out or writing a song, or those things in some sense are entertaining to some. But
Yeah.
there's been this um this insatiable need to get into certain things that have drama rather than things that
Mm.
benefits you as a citizen, the things that you need to know.
Of course.
And
Like
it's
what we're doing
really sad.
tonight. Of course,
Yeah,
like what we're doing tonight. But what
yeah.
concerns you most, Stephen, about today's media culture among our young people? I know you alluded to some things about having that ethic, but what concerns you most for our young people? The culture, media culture.
What concerns me most about the media culture now with young people is the need for likes, the need to
Mm.
get popular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, nobody, I see a lot of young people doing strippiness, and people are praising them. We have adults who are doing strippiness, immoral things online, and
Mm.
persons flock to it. What concerns me is, where do we draw the line of what is right from wrong, or where does the line blur from what is right
Mm.
or wrong? Because
Mm.
I don't understand where we got to a society where um, a mother could be dragged over the coals because her daughter was caught in a video smoking weed,
Mm.
and then she comes out and she says, "Oh, y'all thinking my daughter is a good mother or whatnot," and then and now what we have now more than ever is everybody with an opinion on
Mm.
certain things rather than discussing the issues. And so we're slowly becoming a society detached from our humanity, which concerns me, because I feel like in some sectors of society we no longer care. We don't.
Yeah. Mm. Well, say good night to you, Onika. Good night to you, Cornell. Good night to you, Deborah Wolf. And good night to you, Kelly Arlequin, my folks in Seuss Dyke. And good night to you, Chosen Cadogan. Anthony Todd, good night to you too. And Abiola is in with us. Good night to you all. If you got a question for Stephen, I'm trying to keep him as long as I can to pull some wisdom from him. I'm learning a lot from him tonight. I hope you guys are learning from him too. I'm going to get some wisdom and take back to the schools so I can inspire our youths in high school on tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming in, Stephen. I got some more for you. You still got time, Stephen?
Yeah, yeah, I got time. I got
Okay,
time.
good, good. So let's talk about media. Since we're there, we segue into it. How can media be used more responsibly to uplift our communities? Give us some
That's
ideas.
I think what can be done is we need to first of all highlight what is beneficial to our citizens.
Okay.
Not just what a politician is saying, but really and truly, how does it affect and benefit us? Right now, we have a situation with bus fares that are
Mm,
that are that people are debating whether or not they should pay a high bus fare. Government saying you can't raise it, um, but we must. I think in some sense, I think we must be able to understand how what benefits us and what doesn't.
mm,
Yeah, I think in short, that's basically it. We have to be very careful to what we hear, what is
mm.
facts and what isn't, and to also more than ever do our own research on certain
Yeah.
things. Everything is you can Google it now. Um, Everything is mainstream. So if you're not certain about something, go ahead, Google it.
Awesome. I'm talking to Stephen Vickerie. He's in Georgetown, and I'm in the USA. And we are talking about the things that you need to be hearing. Because I always say this, Stephen, know what you don't know when you need to know what you don't know. Know
Hmm.
what you don't know when you need to know what you don't know. You agree with me,
Yeah,
Stephen?
I agree. I totally agree.
Hmm. Yeah. And so tonight we are not talking about who is smoking, who is drinking, who is having an affair, and none of that stuff that causes a lot of drama. So we're not going to have 10,000 views, and I don't look for it. What I look for is not the hype. I look for the impact,
Hmm.
and so I look for the how I motivate youths, how I can be the change that I see. How can
Hmm.
I follow the pain long enough to bring about a change? And so thank you for being with me on CRL 365. So I got to put you in a hot seat question, Stephen. This one is a hot seat one. What role should journalists and media personalities play during times of social tension or national crisis?
I think media personalities and journalists, in some sense, they have to play the role in ensuring that people are properly informed, not
Mm,
just what somebody is telling you behind the scenes. You have to ensure that people have information that they could make informed decisions as well. Because in a time of crisis, what you find happen is that people come up with all sorts of um, chaotic things to say. And then when a situation is serious, oftentimes the government say, hey, don't worry about it. It's fine. There's no need for a panic. I think information or the right information um, that keeps people not only informed but also gives or allows them to allow them to make informed decisions is something that is very important, and that comes with
mm,
accurate information. Accuracy for information is pretty paramount to that.
mm, mm. We talked about soft skills, and I want to go back there because I want to know how important is emotional intelligence in communication and leadership. How that's one of the soft skills we teach, emotional intelligence. How important it is in communication and leadership. Because you're a leader as an entrepreneur, you are also in communication. Tell us about what you
Yeah.
think, how important it is.
So there's a thing that they teach us in journalism not to get attached to or
Mm,
to detach yourself emotionally from maybe a topic or a story. And so one of the things that I've learned over time is to not try to inject my own personal opinion on
mm,
something, but to ensure that the information that I'm putting out or the information that I'm speaking about covers a range of or a vast range of things um, that people want to hear about, not what I think they should hear about, but what they need to know. Um, excuse me. Many times, what you find happen is that people get too emotional when something happens, and you have to keep those things in check because at the same time, you could be injecting your own personal opinion, which could harm or try to persuade people in a different direction. You don't want that. You have a
mm,
society. sometimes where when you're emotional, people kind of resonate with that emotion, and it just takes
Mm-hmm.
one person to say, "Hey, let's go to the streets. Let's do this." Everybody wants to become advocates, but at the same time, you have to remember that you have to keep yourself in check because
Yeah.
there are people who just need somebody to say, "Hey, go," and they do it.
Mm.
And so you have to be very careful with the way how you present certain things, the way how you speak on certain things, because if you're somebody that has a huge following, people trust you, and people would
Mm.
just move at the fancy. I don't think people sometimes media personalities, especially influencers, I don't think that they understand how powerful they are in a society.
Mm.
Journalists have a certain way that they would speak to the public and the public would listen. But influencers, I think, have a huge control sometimes on followings and certain people, depending on who is following them. And so you have to be responsible, not only morally, but emotionally as well.
Mm. Mm-hmm. But what message would you give to young man trying to find direction and purpose?
Mhm. I think you first have to understand what you want to do.
Mm.
What's your purpose? What's your calling? And it's not something that you have to do young, like 6 years old or 10 years old or even in your
Mm.
teens. There are times where you could sit down and ask yourself, are you happy with where you are now and where you want to be? Are you where you want to be? And
Mm.
I find that in the 21st century now, age does not define anyone. The
Mm-hmm.
age should never define who you want to be. And I often tell, especially young men, that if not now, when? When are you going to
Yeah.
do it? You
Mm.
understand me? You want to become an engineer, but what are you doing to get to that place?
Yeah.
You want to get into the oil and gas sector, but do you have enough educationally or in terms of your academics? Do you have
Mm.
enough in terms of experience to get to that place? Because
Yeah.
foreign companies are very big on experience and training. You understand
Mm.
me? And it goes back to what we were saying in terms of knowledge and reading,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand what it takes to get to that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I find is that sometimes as men we get caught up in our own heads about, we want to do this, but we're thinking about doing this or don't do this, or this might be a risk. But unless you take that step, you'll never know.
Yeah.
There are
You
many
know,
times there.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, there are many times even in my personal life where I've been afraid to do certain things. And I took that one step when I realized that, I go two ways again. You can either fail at it, or you can
Mm.
or you can excel. But you would never know if you stick to that one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to asking simple question as, okay, you want to be this, do you have a resume?
Yeah,
As simple as that. Do you have a resume?
I
Do you have,
I can tell I can tell you I was a human resource officer for 2 years, and the company that I worked for employed mostly men because, of course, it's interior location, it's a lot of hard work, and so, um, you know, they have a different opinion on women doing certain things, and so one of the things I often find, and it's very sad, and I spoke about this just the other day with some friends, is that you said that you put on an app, you put out a vacancy, and you leave a number. If you need additional information, contact this number. Please send your application to this email. I've
mm,
lost count to the amount of times that people would send in an application, that would call saying that they're interested, and they don't know what a CV is.
mm,
They don't know what a cover letter is, an application.
yeah.
They don't know.
Mm. And
It's
that's
really sad
because
because,
and that's why coaches are to be in schools now. That's what we're
yeah.
doing here in the States. Coaches help with that. Teach you soft skills, help you to do your resume, do your
Mhm.
cover letter, give you mock interview training, those kind of
Yeah.
things. Expose you, equip you. for the in-demand jobs, and I think you need to advocate for that over there.
I don't know if it happens now. I can't say for the school system now, but when I was in high school, English language, a part of English language that we had to learn to write application
Mm,
letters. We had to learn to write CVs. I remember Miss Jackson, she probably gonna see this afterwards. Miss Jackson had us in English literally writing application letters, standing in front of the class, reading out this application letter, and she's critiquing you on what you can do. She look at the way you structure it, where you put your address, how you address the person, what you say. CV building was something that she also taught us in high school. So many of us coming out of a school knew what to do when we get out into the world. I was writing applications
mm,
very young. You understand? I don't think that that happens now. And I'm not talking about an application. I'm not talking about just young people coming out of school. It's worse with among young people coming out of school. But what's even worse is that they're adults
mm.
who do not know what a CV is. And I heard there was a recent conference among some HR professionals, and I heard a woman who has been in the profession, she was saying for about 20 years, she was saying that one of the hardest things is for people to sending an application.
Yeah.
And why most people do not get jobs is because they do not understand what a CV and an application is. And so we have to be very careful, and we have to ensure sometimes as parents that our children are equipped to not just go through high school but to face the world. Your application
You're
says a lot
preparing them
about you.
for, of course, you're preparing them for in-demand jobs. You're
Yeah.
preparing them for it's a rites of passage, and so we try for them to get good academics, but are they prepared to get into the workforce? Do our parents understand workforce development? You know,
Mhm.
so I'm imploring on parents, uh, listen to this now or later on, to encourage your youths to seek out those soft skills while they're in school, from middle
Yeah.
school all the way to high
Mhm.
school, and
Yeah.
think about getting some apprenticeship training.
Mhm. And I think it's also I think because I will go back to what I said earlier that the resourcefulness of YouTube,
Mm,
because you can go on YouTube now and say how to write an application, they tell you. How to put
yeah,
together a CV, they tell you. So even if they don't teach it in school, a child can still learn because every child has a tablet now.
yeah.
Every child has a tablet now. And there are things that they could learn early that could help with when they get out there. There are a lot of times that there are persons who have great amount of skills. But they can't put together a CV. They cannot
Mhm.
put together an application. And I've seen how it affected the application process for many people. A simple thing as a CV and application.
Yeah, because guess what? It goes. Your application might not go anywhere further than a desk,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
your interests. If you don't even
mm,
you don't do a good resume, first of all, uh,
hmm,
it goes under in the trash right
hmm,
away. You got 1,000 resumes to look at,
yeah.
and you find one with grammatical errors. Guess what? It's going in the trash sooner than later. And so
Yeah.
let's
And
encourage our youths. Mhm.
what I always tell young people too is that your CV and your application says who you are, even
Yeah,
without an HR having to know you. And if you're not interesting or you're not somebody that can put it together and put it into words, many times, like you rightfully said, there are thousands of applications. We're gonna look for the best ones
yeah.
and
What are
deal
you
with
doing in
them. And you,
school? Are you with the clubs? Are you a leader? Are you a safety patrol? What are you doing? Are
mhm,
you are you selling yourself short? You're doing many things in school. You're part of a club. You're a patrol on the road. I don't know if this. You guys have patrols on the roads like back in the day. In my time,
the
safety
last
patrols,
the last patrol
prefects.
the last patrol I remember was in primary school. I've not seen one
Mm,
since. I don't know if anybody else have. I might be wrong, but to my knowledge, because long ago, there's still prefects in school. I know that for a fact, but patrol is something that you don't really see now. The last time I saw it
mm.
was in primary school, and that was
And that
years
and that
ago.
helps to build leadership skills. You
Yeah.
know, and people have that sense of leadership. I see my
Mm,
friend Winston T. Jacobs is on. He's saying greetings to us, everyone. He like these kind of conversations because he is an advocate for things making change for our youths in the
mhm.
various communities down there in the East Coast. But Stephen, what legacy do you hope to leave through your work?
Oh wow. I'm a work still in progress.
Okay.
I always tell people that the legacy that I want to leave is one in which I want young people looking back at my life to say that no matter no matter how hard life gets, or no matter what life throws at you, that you must be able to go through it. One, learning from whatever curve or whatever mistake you make along that way, and also most importantly, know to yourself that it's never too late
Mm,
to go after what you really want. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still um, trying to get where I want to be in terms of my full potential. Um, and so for me, the legacy as of right now is to never give up, and to always persevere more than anything in the world, because I think a lot of times we give up too easy, or
mm,
we kind of pull away, or we kind of say to ourselves, "Oh, I'm too old. I can't do this," or we
mm.
say some things like, "My time has passed." Yeah, and, so those are the kind of things that I want to encourage people, apart from having to leave a legacy, but encourage people to know that there's no limit on time. Do
Mm.
it if you gotta do it right away, do it now, get the ball
Do
rolling.
it today. Charmin Blackman said, do it today. Charmin,
Yeah.
good night to you, Charmin Blackman. So we got a question here from Onika Grant. She's saying, haven't seen nor heard about you, Mr. Vickery, for a while. Are you still on AGP 19 News? Tell us about that.
Oh, so I had resigned in 2020, shortly after the effects of COVID. And as of last year, September, I rejoined the team. You might not hear from me because I'm working behind the scenes on their social media, and I'm also writing their stories online. And I do contribute one or two times to packages, but I'm not yet fully immerse myself back into the newsroom as yet. But yes, I am back with HGP. I am just working in the background, basically.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your service. Let's
Yeah.
segue into what's happening now, current affairs in Guyana,
Hmm.
since you have enough time to spend some time with me. Um, as Guyana celebrates 60 years of independence, what emotions or reflections come to mind for you personally as a media professional and a citizen?
In reflecting on 60 years, I think that personally, Guyana has gone through some amount of changes, um, in terms of not only of its infrastructure, but also in terms of politics, in terms of the way how certain things are being done now. But I think that, I was reading. I mean, I'm not from that time. I wasn't born then, but I was reading recently about how Ghana, the work that went into Ghana gaining its independence. And when you look at some of the photos, then you see Dr. Chedi Jaga and Forbes Burnham hand in hand, and they
Mm,
were together. And I one of the things that I noticed throughout all of the things that all the from the stories that were written from that time, and all the pictures, is that it took coming together.
mm,
It took a united front for Ghana to have certain changes. And if you look at the
mm,
history of how Ghana has developed, the way how the Grange administration got into government, people put things aside, and the unity that people saw that happened in the 60s with Chetty and with Dr. Chetty and Burnham, you saw the same thing happening in 2016 when everything had 2015 when everything had changed. And one of the things that I would often say to people is that unless we unite, excuse me, unless we come together and put certain differences aside, Ghana will always be where it is in terms of our politics.
Mm.
Our politics, and I'm not singling out any political party, but our politics is the one thing that is continuously dividing our country.
Mm.
And
Wow.
it's just shameful that 60 years after we put in all that work as a nation, we had conflicts. And you know about this too, in the early 2000s, in the 90s, and all these different times. It's just a shame that what we have now, we have no sort of legacy. What we have is people trying to grab power in the best way they want to. There's no unity, not even in the opposition. Everybody just see something and they want it and they grab and they do what they have to do. And 60 years later, we've lost the concept of what it truly means to be one people, one nation, and having one destiny. It's not a destiny that one political party wants, or what another political or what one politician might say. It's about Guyana. And it's just shameful that 60 years later we've lost that concept yet again. We had a grip on it in 2015. Something in 2015 awoke in us and many of us as Guyanese. While we might not, while we might say, "Oh, it's a Granger got into government or whatever," we started to slowly feel a sense of pride as a nation. And I'm not saying it's because of a party getting into power, but we started to see each other as one. But somewhere along the line, we lost it again. Where do we get back to that? I don't know. I can't say.
Wow.
I really can't say.
Thank you so much for that. I feel your pain. How important, though, is media coverage during national celebrations like Guyana's 60th independence anniversary?
I've been browsing what's happening. I browse what's happening on online, and it's really disappointing that uh, in terms of in terms of our 60 years as a nation, there wasn't much there wasn't much information out there as to what we actually achieved as a nation together. And I'm not talking about what one political party did during a particular time. I'm talking about what we really have achieved as a nation. And I
Mm.
think that in terms of the media, we dropped the ball this time. Not much was done. We didn't even have a proper cultural or reflection or a program that really
Mm.
spoke or had a discussion on one of the things that we've learned. Maybe persons who that were there when the Union Jack was lowered and we raised the golden arrowhead. What are some of the things that they would have seen? What are some
Mm.
things that we can do? We didn't even have those discussions.
Mm.
You understand me? And it's really sad. It's really sad that how media wise I mean, some people, I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened, but some people tried. Some media
Mm.
houses really zeroed in on the history of Guyana, some important facts that we didn't really know about.
Right.
I enjoyed scrolling through and seeing people talk about certain aspects of Guyana that we forgot
Mhm.
existed in certain places, how important certain places were or are is in Guyana. But we didn't get
Mm.
much of it. We didn't get much of it. It was all about, what we're doing now. There was no
Mm.
reflection on what happened in the past and all. And it's really sad.
So what I hear you say is that media hasn't done enough, or wasn't effective enough, or did an effective job spotlighting Guyana as a growing and emerging nation on the world stage. Is what I'm
They
hearing.
did. That they did, but I don't think that it was done. in a way to really be something to be proud of. I
Okay.
think there were people that were trying to take credit for things that they should not have taken credit for. If you understand what I'm trying to say,
Mm.
Ghana did
Okay.
not get. Ghana did not, in some sense, Ghana did not get here to where we are because of one movement or one
Mm.
person.
Mm.
I referred to, I referred just now to what reading about what Dr. Chetty and what Burnham did in the past
Mm.
and what political leaders have done over time to get Ghana where it needs to be, whether positively or negatively. But it was just people taking credit for things that, for now. But Ghana existed way before this. Ghana was being developed way before all of
Mm.
this.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
So Stephen, Guyana is receiving increased international attention though because of oil, tourism, infrastructure, and economic growth. How can media help ensure the world also sees the culture, the people, the resilience, and the creativity of Guyanese citizens?
Um, Honestly, I think that excuse me. I think that what the media can do is really highlight what is happening um in terms of not only the positives of having oil, but also sometimes the challenges that we're having as well.
Mm.
Because I feel like sometimes we focus so much on the positives and what we're doing that we forget that there are challenges to it. That's why when
Mm.
something happens, there's certain negativity that is put to it.
Mm.
Politicians jump up and say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong," when in fact there are certain challenges to it. And I don't think that the government of Ghana is somewhat honest enough about some of the challenges that they're facing with
Mm.
regards to oil and gas. And I think if the people of Ghana, and I think the world at large, understand that as a developing country, and you hear this term often, but it's a truth, we're developing. As a
Mm.
developing country, what are some of the challenges that we're currently facing and how we're maneuvering it? I think the world would have a better understanding that, hey, our country is developing and we're growing. It's not just the rapid development in terms of these skyscrapers or the buildings or whatnot, but we're a
Mm.
country that are also learning from our mistakes as well. Because a lot of mistakes are happening. It's just we don't speak about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's for sure. So be a good advocate, Steve, and I implore you to do that. But what responsibility do journalists uh, and content creators have in shaping Guyana's image internationally? Do you think you guys have a responsibility?
I think it's not just the responsibility of shaping Guyana's image. Is not just on journalists and influencers. I think it's on everyone.
Okay.
You understand me? During this time, I there's a lot of foreigners
Mm.
in Ghana right now. They came home for the 60th anniversary to be part of all things Ghana. And I think the normal man that's selling in the grocery store or on the market, the impression that you give people really tells who we really are. Or while influencers could highlight the positives or maybe some of the negatives as well, because there are a few influencers who highlight some of the negative things that are going on. And while journalists sometimes try to be objective and really give people information based reports and help to shape conversation, I think everybody has a responsibility to really be part of that future that we're trying to build. If you go to certain places, some people are in certain countries they're not too welcoming, and then if you go to some countries you realize that they're emulating what that country is. And I think that the responsibility falls on everyone,
Mm.
not just influencers, not just journalists, but everybody has to play a part in that image.
I know we sing the song a lot. I want to build this land that belongs to me. And national anthem have some words we don't pay attention to because a lot of times we only play the instrumental part of it. We don't pay
Yeah,
attention to the words. That even if we're in a diaspora, we have a responsibility to build the land that belongs to us. And if we
yeah.
all get back to that place of remembering those primary school day songs, we'll have more pride and more patriotism to our homeland, Guyana. And I'm hoping that
But
folks yeah, I'm hoping that folks will get back to that state of being patriotic or know that we all one people, one nation, one destiny. We all listening together. You agree?
I agree. But you know what? When I was in school, on Mondays we had to sing about three national songs, recite all four stanzas of the national anthem,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we had to do a lot of patriotic things. That does not happen now.
Mm.
And so I think that in the school system, while I think that some schools do it, there's some that try to be politically correct, that they forget that patriotism starts from the school system.
Mm.
It starts from appreciation for country, for sovereignty, and all these different things. It starts from very young, because that's where I learned it from.
Mm.
So right, doing social studies as a subject, you learn a lot about Ghana. You learn history. You not just learn about you not just learn about Caribbean history. You learn about Guyana's history. You find appreciation for those things as well.
Yep. Yep. I got folks are coming on in and complimenting you for who you are, Stephen, and you are making an impact. And this is what it's all about, the CRL 365, making impact, not just hype. We want to be impactful in our conversations, and we're doing that. You would agree?
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'm enjoying this conversation, honestly.
Thank you so much for sticking and staying with me. But how has
Yeah.
social media changed the way Guyanese independence celebrations are experienced locally and within the diaspora? How you think social media changed the way we celebrate it at this time around, the 60th anniversary?
Um, there were some positives and negatives to the way how we celebrated it. Um, long ago you had the normal army marching and all those different
Mm,
things, and it was real. You felt the patriotism in those things. But this year we had drone shows, which I absolutely loved. I'm
hmm
really, I should have gone to that. I should have really gone and see it up close. But we had the mishap with the flag raising.
mm,
That really made it look really terrible. We looked bad, and I think what social media has done is that now we can hide certain things.
yeah,
Everything is broadcast in real time. Because I could have been home and watched the drone show. You don't necessarily
yeah.
have to be there. The flag
And
raising,
sometimes the cameras give you a better angle that you can see it from five, six, seven ways. And it's good
yeah,
sometimes when you see it on television,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I feel like what social media has done as well is that it is connecting us. I mean, there are a lot of Guyanese that could not have come home, but were still part of the celebrations because they looked at it online.
Hmm
And so broadcast is also very important of how we experienced it. We might not have been there
mm
physically, but we felt the sense of the positiveness and also the negative part of it as well.
mm
So now you can't really social media, you can't hide from certain things. If a mistake is made, everybody will see it, the entire world. And if something great is happening as well, and we're seeing like the drone show, and what is happening in terms of how Guyanese are turning out to be patriots, you're also seeing that as well. We had the whole mishap with the boats going there. There were positives and negatives, but everything was public because of social media. We would have not
mm.
known those things 10 years ago if we didn't have the capability of going live or taking a picture and posting it on Facebook. Everybody's become a citizen's journalist in their own way.
mm. I'm so grateful to have you, Stephen, to talk to us about so many different things. And I'm telling you, man, I'm pulling some nuggets from you, some wisdom from you. I so admire that you were able to retire at age what? What age did you retire?
I'm not necessarily retired. I'm still
I mean, from
practicing, but not.
that particular area you retired. What age did you retire?
I was about 30, 29, 29, 30. Yeah,
Okay.
somewhere. Yeah. Or
Wow.
27. 27, yeah. But at that time, I'll be honest, at that time when I decided to call it quits on the media, there were a plethora of things that made me decide, hey, I'm done with it. One of it was
Mm,
the way how I started to see how there was a control or a need to control the narrative of the media, and then there were
mm,
persons who were slowly cowering, in some sense. So and they were just selling out one by one. I'm using the term selling out because that's how that if you want to
fair
know the
point.
gravity of it, that's what it is. And so I'm
Mm,
like, I can't be part of this.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and coming back into it in a more, excuse me, in a less public way, I realized that there are a lot you're seeing from the background.
Mm.
Um, yeah, if you understand what I'm saying. So, mhm.
All right. I'm not gonna let you go back into that because it's gonna be
No,
traumatizing. So
yeah,
I empathize with you. But this year's
yeah.
celebration appears larger, more global, and more
Mm.
commercially visible. In your opinion, Steve, how does Guyana's 60th independence celebration compare to the 50th anniversary celebration? Because I mean,
Oh
I
wow,
saw it. I saw the 50th.
oh wow. Um, how do I say this without having to? I was there at the 50th anniversary. I was pretty much at every event because I was a practicing journalist. Um,
Mm,
at the 50th anniversary, even children felt pride in being Guyanese.
mm,
There was a certain pride that the Guyanese adopted in the 50th anniversary. We had there was a push for people to understand certain historical things. Events centered around culture. There was a strong, very strong um, push on culture. You had symposiums on masquerading. You had symposiums about folklore. You had different things that were really truly Guyanese. Art
mm,
forms that you thought died came to life, and there was a huge investment in terms of culture and history. And so
mm,
even when the flag was when Durban Park was really and truly being done to facilitate that big event, and people saw that big flag in the air, everybody stood silent when they sung the national anthem. People were crying. People felt
mm,
it was something at the 50th anniversary that awakened in many of us. Because I was right there. I was in Durban Park, and I never felt so Guyanese.
mm,
Even if you didn't want to leave, you don't want to leave because you just felt like yes, this is what it is. Fast forwarding 10 years afterwards, it was a stark difference. I
mm,
was surprised that the creative community even came out and complained that nobody really consulted them
mm,
on maybe shows or maybe folklores and them other things. Nobody
mm,
really paid emphasis on the history.
mm,
And when I'm saying paid emphasis, I'm talking about not at the scale it was 10 years ago. There was a stark difference. Um, you kept hearing this year that, oh, you have to be proud to be Guyanese. We're turning 6 years or Diamond Jubilee. But what did you give us to be proud of?
mm,
It was, and it's like you didn't even know that the 60th happened.
mm.
It just come and gone. It just come and gone. There was so much
Wow.
emphasis placed on private things. Maybe the carnival, Guyana carnival. Not saying that it, I mean, it's a private thing altogether. But what about our thing? You understand
Yeah.
what you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
felt less Guyanese in at the 60th than you felt at the 50th.
Mm.
10
Okay.
years
Deep.
after. 10 years
Mm.
after. I think that the only thing that felt patriotic from that entire event was the drone
Mm.
show. I don't know if people agree
Okay.
with me, but the only
Mm.
thing that felt really patriotic, because even in night of the flag raising, it took 45 minutes to raise another flag. I mean, how?
Mm.
The drone show was the only highlight of this entire celebration that people actually said, yes, we're proud at 60.
Mm.
Because there were different things like the national animals. There were certain emblems that were made in the sky using drones. That has never happened in Guyana. We are accustomed to fireworks, but to see technology that the world has experienced being brought to Guyana, and they could see it and feel patriotic about, that was the only thing. I can't say for certain that there were anything outside of that that really
Mm.
spoke to us at 60.
Well, Stephen, do you think that national pride among young Guyanese has increased or decreased over the past decade?
I think it's decreased. I think it has decreased. I think for some of us young people who are, the minute somebody says something bad about Guyana, we're online ready to defend it.
Mm.
I think what has happened is that young people have become so um, enshrined in other things that we've totally forgot. And this would have been the greatest opportunity to sensitize our young people about Guyana, and we
Mm.
missed it. I think young people learned more at the 50th than the 60th.
Mm.
It's not something that you want to admit. You don't want to admit that something like that because, of course, it was a different time, a different administration. So you try to be politically correct. But the truth of the matter is, you feel less patriotic now than you did
Mm.
then. You realize that when you looked on Facebook on the 26th of May yesterday, a lot of people were referring to the celebration back then, 10 years ago, to now.
Mm.
And they were not doing it because, and I see people online were saying, oh, people are so political and all these everything. You have to understand that people felt Guyanese then. That's the last thing people remember in terms of a real cultural celebration,
Mm-hmm.
you
Lots
know?
of folks went home from London. Most of the people I saw who being interviewed was lots of folks from the UK went
Yeah.
home, but also Stephen, many Guyanese abroad are now returning home to invest, celebrate, and reconnect. What role does media play in encouraging that reconnection?
I think that the media has a role to play in that, in a sense that we gotta be we have to be um we gotta be able to provide the facts that the diaspora need on certain
Mm.
things. People come to invest because they're seeing somewhat of the positive of Guyana, and when they get here, it's a stark reality that we're still somewhat backwards, even though we're claiming that we're going forward. There's still some things that are challenges to us. I spoke about
Mm.
challenges earlier, and I think that's what the media has done, because I see not all of them, but what I think that some, for the ones that are still balanced media houses now, what some of them have done is to provide the diaspora with information with regards to what's really happening.
Mm.
Yes, there are a lot of positives, but there are also a lot of negative things that are happening, and there are also challenges at that.
Mm.
And sometimes, it could be a deterrent for some people, but at the same time, it's better than coming all the way here thinking that things are great, when the truth of the matter is we are still developing and getting where we need to be.
Mm.
It makes sense.
Yeah. But in your opinion is your opinion, Stephen. Do you believe
Mhm.
that Guyana is prepared for the rapid international attention and development currently taking place right now?
I think we've tried to position ourselves in a way that we try to position ourselves in a way that we are um, that the attention that we're getting internationally, not just the attention, but also in the way that we are modernizing ourselves. There's still things I've engaged with some a few foreigners that have said to me that, hey, you guys still using cash.
Mm,
Your banking system does not work. I hear a lot of foreigners complain about the internet connection and the service. These are things that the rest of the world are accustomed to, those fast paced things. And I think I can not the government for it because they've tried. They're now trying to develop those things, but these are things that we could have developed years ago.
mm,
The infrastructure was there. Um, and so I think that it's important for the diaspora to understand that there are still challenges. While there are positive things coming out of Ghana, there are still challenges even for us as Guyanese. And when they're coming, they have to realize that it's not just all roses, a field of
mm,
roses.
mm,
Um, there are a few things that we're still trying to work out as a nation positively in some sense. So when they're coming
mm.
to be part of that, they're coming to also be part of that solution as well.
Yeah, more solution
Mm.
based. But what stories about Guyana still need greater visibility internationally?
I think what one of the things that I think basically one of the things that we need attention on is how far Guyana has come from being advertised as this eco, this place where it's just wildlife. I remember going to St. Kitts, traveling to St. Kitts for the first time years ago, and people thought that we were like the people from the Amazon,
Mm,
and when you show them pictures of places like Georgetown and certain other places, and I think it's the way how Ghana has continuously been advertised to the world as this
mm,
eco tourism place. We are. There are some parts of Ghana that's vastly forested, but
yeah.
Ghana has evolved in terms of its infrastructure and also the way how we're trying to really catch up with technology of the time. And I
Mm,
think that we don't see those things. We do in some sense, but I think the rest of the world can appreciate that. Um, could have an appreciation for the fact that we're trying to get with the rest of the world in terms of our development.
mhm.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back to pick your brain again on this one. As a communicator and a storyteller, Stephen, what would you like the world to understand about Guyana beyond oil and economics?
I think one of the things that the world can appreciate about Guyana is the fact that we've always been a country divided.
Okay.
We've always been a country um, that has been because of the influence of things like politics and status. We have somewhat broken down those things, but a good thing about Guyanese is that when it comes to certain national things, we come together. And I think the world can appreciate the fact, like many other countries that has issues. I mean, Guyana is not an isolated incident of itself. Every
Mm,
country has its own issues, but I think what's so fundamental about Guyana is the fact that um, in times of crisis and in times of despair or when certain things happen that are really sad, we really come together and we mourn as one, or we really put our heads together as one. And I think that if that can be emulated throughout, not just when something bad happens, but I
mm,
think if that can be duplicated in everyday life, then it become a very far away. And I think that
mm,
the world does not necessarily see that sometimes. And I think that it can also be something that is positive as well that we
mm,
can see from it. I think that Ghana is so much more than oil right now. We have had industries in terms of gold. We have had industries in terms of we've been very big on food, and
Mm,
culture. And I think that what has been happening is that those things have been taking a back seat because of oil.
mm.
And I think people must not forget that Ghana is highly cultured. We're one of the most cultured places in this hemisphere. When you go to other countries, you learn about their history, you realize that hey, Ghana has a rich culture that sometimes we don't really invest in a lot, or we don't really
Mm.
highlight a lot. And so I think the world can benefit from that.
Yeah, and I don't think they know that we export sand, nice silicon
Yeah,
sand that St.
yeah,
Lucia needs, because if you don't have good sand, your home can crumble, and they come
yeah,
to Guyana for the sand. And
hmm,
I don't think they know also that we have more than 25 miles of beach, some uninhabited, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So as media homes, I hope that we can highlight these things so that we
hmm,
can talk beyond oil, beyond
yeah,
gold even. There was bauxite. I remember the ships used to come in for the bauxite.
yeah,
We had a whole Linden town was built because of bauxite. So
yeah,
we are moving
yeah,
away from those things that meant something to us back in the days. But
yeah.
if you, Stephen, if you had a headline to write on a paper or host a segment, if you had one headline to describe Guyana's 60 years of independence, what would that be and why?
I think I think if I could use one word to describe Ghana at 60, I would say that word is perseverance. Ghana has gone
Okay.
through so much as a country. There've been a lot of changes, positively and negatively, but one of the things that I could always say that it didn't break us as a nation. When I say break us, it hasn't brought us to our knees. There's a lot of things that are not necessarily going good as of we are right now, but Guyanese always find a way to survive, and I think that's a positive. I think that's the one thing that we always persevere no matter what is thrown at us, whether it's economics, whether it's politics. We always find a way to persevere and to continue and to do what we need to do. And I think that's one of the things that for me, rather than a headline, I think the one word of perseverance would best sum it up.
Yeah, I'll take that. Guyana at 60 is not only a celebration of independence, it's a reflection of identity, resilience, growth, and the responsibility of telling our story correctly to the world. I'm speaking to Stephen Vickerie, a journalist, an entrepreneur, and no one gets away from rapid fire, Stephen, and you wouldn't get away from it tonight either. Now, rapid fire pour out is, you know, rapid fire pour out, fire round is quick answers only, right? Quick
Yeah.
answers, okay? So you got some water. I didn't see you drink anything. You have a moment to,
I'm
to,
good.
to take.
I'm good.
You're
I'm
good?
good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
good.
So I'm going to take you through. This is rapid fire, my folks. And so tell me how we do at the end of this rapid fire. One word answer, short answer. You ready, Stephen?
Yeah, sure.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Okay. You want to
Tea.
elaborate?
I've not had a good reaction to coffee. I don't know why.
Like
Yeah,
me,
I
put me to
have.
sleep.
No, I have this thing where I could walk the entire night.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't have a good reaction to it. So tea.
Okay, good. I'll take some ginger anytime.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
newspaper or digital media? Which one?
Oh, digital.
Digital. I
Yeah.
wonder why. You don't like to turn the
I
pages, Stephen?
See, what happens is that it's the for me it's the time of the information.
Hmm.
Because with digital everything is real time.
Okay.
Why wait for it till the next day in a newspaper unless they have something new, which most times don't really happen now, unless it's like
See,
something different. But I do appreciate both. But if I had to choose one, it would be the latter.
digital. Oh, good. So camera or microphone?
Oh, microphone.
Microphone.
Yeah,
You prefer to be heard than to be seen?
yeah. I'm
Is that
very
what it
camera shy.
means?
I'm very camera shy.
Okay. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll, ta- I'll take that. That means so. Then I can segue to this one: introvert or extrovert?
Oh, extrovert. Extrovert.
Really?
Yes, extrovert. I was an introvert at one point in my life, but having to get thrown into the landscape of TV journalism and being a presenter, you often
Mm,
get approached from people on the streets, and they
mm.
want to talk with you, they want to ask you certain questions, and so you're forced into being an extrovert, and so having to constantly communicate with the public, I became an extrovert in some sense. Yeah.
Okay. You're studying these two things, law or engineering.
Oh, law,
Okay.
law.
All right. You like to represent people?
Um, and lawyers make more money in some sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. One Caribbean country that you'd love to work in.
Oh, oh, Turks and Caicos.
Turks and Caicos. I heard it's a nice
Yeah,
place over there. I know
yeah,
someone who lived there and someone is still living there. Turks and Caicos, it is. I got to visit
yeah.
there one day. Biggest media pet peeve.
Oh, journalists make a lot of money.
Hmm.
They
And you
don't.
don't?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how you guys afford all those nice suits and shoes?
We have things that there's certain things are sponsored,
Okay.
and many of us do side jobs as well. Some things on the side. So you
So you
find
keep
that
it
most
persona.
journalists, yes. So you find that most journalists, because we can speak and we're engaging, you get hired to do things like hosting,
MC,
um,
okay.
MC, and you might get invited on a panel or something. So you get certain paid, or you get asked to judge a competition. I've been asked to do that a lot.
Hmm.
So yeah, so you make money apart from it, but actual journalism we cannot live
Oh, I empathize with you, Mr. Vickery. I empathize.
on.
I see why now you had to, move away from that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Next one for you, most underrated skill in journalism. The most underrated skill.
Mm, uh, speaking. I think speaking is the most underrated skill. I think people associate journalists more with writing, but
Hmm.
in terms of like being able to present or to
Hmm.
read, I think that's the most underrated, because there's a certain tonal, there's certain tones and cadence you have to do in terms of presenting the news and reading certain news packages that people underestimate it as a skill that you have to learn over time. And it took me a
Hmm.
couple of years to learn that as well.
Awesome, awesome. You're doing well so far. How is he doing, my people? How is he doing so far? I see Colin is on here, and I see folks are still here with us. Thank you all so much for sticking and staying. One favorite motivational quote, Stephen. Your favorite motivational quote.
Oh, my favorite motivational quote. It was from Jim Carrey. He said
Mm,
that you do not have to video or take photo of someone when you're doing good in the world, or something to that
mm,
extent. I think he was basically talking about the fact that you can do something for someone, but you don't have to put your camera in their face or show the world that you're
mm,
doing something good.
mm.
Doing good can be away from the public, from having it public or something in the
Public.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. The most difficult interview you ever conducted.
Oh wow. So it was Clement Rohi at a press conference a couple years ago. He was Minister of Home Affairs, and he was being very difficult. And we actually got into a bit of an exchange.
Hmm.
Um, it was very difficult. I mean, it wasn't an interview. Most of my interviews are great, or has been great. I'm grateful for that. But press conferences, asking questions, that was the most difficult one. Yeah, that was the most
Hmm.
difficult one, because we almost ended
Okay.
up in an exchange of words. Yeah,
Folks will say you're doing great. They say you're doing great. Let me see if
yeah.
I can move along very quickly. Uh, Biggest lesson entrepreneurship taught you.
Oh, um, collect 50% of the up down payment of 50%.
Okay, I'm taking lessons. I'm taking lessons, man. I'm telling
Take
you.
half, take half up front. The reason why that was my biggest um, lesson is because oftentimes people take long to pay you after they get the service.
Mm,
Some people pay up front, like depending on what it is, and then some people prefer to get their stuff and then pay you long afterwards.
mm,
So I've adopted to saying, well, we have there's a when I usually I would give people a quotation, and in that
mm,
quotation it would say that 50% is required, and it has done
mm,
wonders for me.
Awesome. I'm taking
Yeah,
lessons from you. You
yeah.
see, you can never stop learning. Books or podcasts? Which one you prefer?
Books. You have to be very careful with people's opinion on a podcast.
Okay.
I think books are books, especially they're more enshrined in facts as against
Mm-hmm.
a podcast which gives opinions, because some podcasts now have some person that is for or against, and sometimes you're split between what they're saying. But books are really it's fact. It's most of it is in facts.
Okay. Books, you says. All right. So morning person or night owl?
Oh, morning person. I
Mm,
wake up at 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, and I sleep pretty early. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of age,
mm.
but
Or
it's
fatigue, maybe?
sometimes, yeah, depending on what I do. But usually, if I go out and I want to go to bed by 10, 11.
Mm,
I'm not sure if it's all the fun I had in my 20s, but in my 30s now, my bed is the
okay.
place. Yeah.
Mm. Let me ask you this one. Success or significance? Which one would you choose?
I would choose, excuse me, I would choose success. You can be significant in terms of your relevance in society, but some
Okay.
people do not have true success. I think true success comes with being happy with what you've put out there or what you have.
Mm,
Some people are led by, they might have success, but they're not satisfied. They
mm.
want greed and all these different things. I think true success I would value more than significance, being significant.
Okay. That's awesome. We're getting close to the end. Legacy or luxury, Stephen?
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. I think if I have to choose one, I would think legacy. I think what you do impacts everyone.
Mm,
I remember there were some children that a couple of years ago that came to HGP, and they knew me by name. They knew me by name. And
mm,
some of them were even fascinated to meet me. So I think everything that we do, whether it's positive or negative, people look and they see. And it's important to have a legacy where you can impact somebody positively, even with words or some kind of encouragement. Legacy does
mm,
not mean that something that you do and you live long after. It's what you do in the moment as well.
mm. So
Luxury is
then,
nice as well. Luxury is
eh,
nice as
eh,
well.
yeah, like me, I'm still waiting for my Maybach car. That's a luxury car I want. I
Yeah,
asked for it for my 61st birthday. I'm still waiting. That's a luxury I would love to
yeah,
have. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But then you must have a definition for your purpose. What it is.
I think the definition of my purpose is to create a positive impact on everybody that I meet. I try to do that in terms of, interactions with people. You try not to come off as somebody who is too arrogant, because sometimes people view journalists as someone unapproachable. And I think that the
Mm,
more positive you are with people, or the more welcoming you are, it really makes somebody's day. A simple hi or hello or a 2 minute conversation could go a far way with people.
mm. For
Mhm.
somebody like you, I have to go over 2 hours, man. I'm telling you, because I don't want to come back to you twice or three times. So I'm pulling everything I can tonight. And so I hope you feel
Yeah,
empowered. I hope you
yeah,
feel
I do.
impactful. And so before we close tonight, though, what final message would you like to leave with aspiring journalists, young entrepreneurs, students, and people afraid to pursue multiple passions at once?
I think that you must have a clear path. It's not just about what you want to do in terms of your profession or what you want to achieve in terms of your academics or even what you want to do with your life generally. I think that you must have a clear map, um, excuse me, with what you want to do. What I find oftentimes people do is that they rush into things and not think about it. And then they hit a stumbling block and they're like, oh, I'm done. You have to understand that to get where you want to be, there are going to be hard times. There are going to be times when you fail, but the way how you get back up or you learn from that mistake goes a very far away. And you have to always have a positive outlook on every single thing, even when it's bad. You have to look at it and say, "Hey, um, this happened for a reason," and you also have to have faith. You have to believe in something. I know most people have different religious faiths that they believe in, but I think that being having a good spiritual life goes a far way as well. You have to have the balance between your own perseverance, and also you have to also have faith, and you also have to believe in yourself as well. Nothing comes easy. Nothing comes easy. If it does, be very fearful. Everything comes with a challenge, and I think that's the most important thing of all.
Awesome, awesome. Tonight's conversation reminds us that growth has no limits, I would say, when discipline meets purpose. Our guest
Yeah.
was Javone Steven Vickerie, represents a generation willing to learn continuously, think critically, communicate responsibly, and build boldly. I want to say thank you all for coming on in to CRL 365, for sharing the story. You, Stephen, for sharing it with us, and
Yeah.
those of you who share the likes. Thank you so much for coming on in. Some folks are coming in late, and Colin is here, and he's coming on late, and he said Mr. Vickery has indeed been a household name in media. That's right. You're still a household name, and folks are waiting for you to come back out to HGPT. But I want to say
Soon.
once again, thanks. Soon, right? I want to say thank you for sharing your story, your
Yeah.
journey, and your insight with us tonight. To everyone watching, keep growing, keep learning, keep serving, and remember, you don't always have to be inspired. You can be the inspiration. And I learned that from Eddie Neblett. He sang this song called Reset. You
Yeah.
don't always have to be inspired. You can be the inspiration. And so this
Yeah.
is yours truly, RC Harley Quinn, better known as DJ Quinn, your matured mixer, signing off from Forefront today, CRL 365. Glow and grow and forward together. And let's go far together. Not fast alone, but together we can go far. And so good night to you, Stephen. Any last words? Any shouts out to mom and dad, to your siblings, to your best friends? Anything I didn't ask you? This is the moment for you to drop it there, and then we can say bye bye from the forefront and today. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to say good night to mommy and daddy. I know mommy was watching. I'm not sure if dad is watching, but good night to granny, my siblings that probably watching, and the entire of Guyana. I want to say that leaving a note. I just want to say that as Guyanese, we might feel a bit intimidated by what's going on. I think that we must always have a positive outlook on who we are and remind ourselves what truly Guyanese is, or what being truly Guyanese is, and just stay positive. That's all.
Stay positive is the last word. And so, without further ado, I want to thank you all for coming on in tonight. Those of you who might be coming afterwards to look at the broadcast, I hope you learned something from it, because my purpose here is to be impactful and not for the hype, but to be impactful in edifying, encouraging, and motivating. So, until next time, here on Forefront today, thank you once again, Stephen. And thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much
you so
for
much
all
for
you
having
do,
me.
for representing Guyana well. And I'm so very proud of you as my great nephew. All the best to
Yeah,
you and the family. God bless.
yes, goodbye.
Hear me out. Alright. Hear me out. Oh, yeah. Hear me out. From Charlotte Street to the sacrifice. Media lights, but the mission real. Speaking truth with integrity and skill. Engineering mind and a legal brain. Still grounded through the pressure and fame. Every chapter, every page. Growth and purpose, center stage. Learning daily, aiming higher. Turning passion into fire. Hear me out. Javone Steven Vickerie. One voice, many purposes. Rising higher for the world to see. Building legacy courageously. Guyana shining bright tonight. 60 years and the future in sight. Through the media, let the whole world know. Golden arrowhead, continue to glow. Yeah. Logo media making impact strong. Telling stories that uplift and belong. Community focused, meaningful talk. It's nourished youths with every walk. Never boxed in one lane alone. Creating pathways of his own. Journalist spirit, entrepreneur drive. Helping conversations come alive. From Georgetown streets to